It's officially March Madness season, and here at Hilltop News, we wanted to give you guys a couple of quick tips when creating your brackets, as well as go over a few of our own personal brackets with the official tournament games starting tomorrow.
And now, even though the official bracket does start tomorrow, there was some playing games last night with Texas Southern knocking off Texas A&M Corpus Christi to claim the 16 seed, and then University of Indiana did knock off Wyoming to claim a 12 seed. Now, even though those playing games have started last night and there's 2 more today, you still have a little less than 24 hours to fill out your bracket. So before you fill out the bracket, we've got a few tips here for you all at Hilltop News to help you fill it out.
First thing to do when creating your bracket is you want at least one 12 seed over a 5 seed upset, because since 1985, the 12 seeds have won 51 against 93 of the 5 seed games. And in 2019 alone, 3 out of the 4 12 seeds beat the 5 seeds, so it's still a common upset worth picking. And
now, speaking of upsets, another thing you need to make sure to do when you're filling out your bracket is just pick some upsets. Every year, on average, there's about 12.5 upsets in the entire tournament. Yes, the 5-12 is most common, but you'll see a 13 knock off a 4 seed. Last year, we saw a 15 seed Oral Roberts knock off a 2 seed Ohio State. It's very common to see some upsets, so make sure you pick at least 5 or more to try and give you a good chance at filling out a good bracket.
Also, when looking at your Final Four, 89% of the time it has been a 1 through 3 seed. However, in 2014, UConn, who was a 7th seed, won it all. So just like the rest of the tournament, it's complete madness, and you never know who will make it.
Now I think it's time for us to look through our brackets so y'all can see what we're thinking about our Final Four and a few of the big upsets. Now, starting off with the West region, it's definitely one of, if not the toughest region to get out of, with the favorite Gonzaga being the 1 seed, but there's also Duke as a 2 seed and Tech as a 3 seed that all have a really good chance of coming out. In my opinion, I love Tech as the 3 seed. I think how well they do defensively, being the #1 defensive team in the nation, is going to lead them out of the West region.
Similar to you, Connor, I do have 3 seed Texas Tech going all the way to the Elite 8 to beat Gonzaga. However, I do have 10 seed Davidson knocking out 7 seed Michigan State in the first round.
I think Davidson really is a good team, but honestly, I like Michigan State. And I have Michigan State not only getting past Davidson in the first round, but I have them defeating Duke in the second round. Duke is coming in this tournament cold after losing to Virginia Tech in the ACC tournament final, and Michigan State has gotten hot at the right time. Now, moving on to the South, as we said, West was one of the hardest. In my opinion, I think South is the hardest. With Arizona, Tennessee, Villanova, I could see any of these 3 teams really making a big run and coming out of this region. In my opinion, though, my favorite is Villanova. The toughest game for them, I don't even think will be the Arizona matchup. It'll be Tennessee, because Tennessee and Nova are so evenly matched. They've got similar strength of schedules, similar records versus top 25, and even similar shooting percentages, with shooting 35.9% from the 3-point line, both shooting 43% from the field. The only big difference is Villanova can shoot from the free throw line way better.
Now looking into the Midwest, I think Kansas being the #1 seed personally is probably the easiest route to the Final Four. I have them taking on all 3 teams in an easy sweep and then eventually facing off against USC, which I do think will be a really tight game because they have similar stats, but eventually coming out on the top.
Yeah, I think USC is a really strong thing. I think a lot of people are underrating how good height is and how good rebounding is in a tournament kind of schedule. I think they will easily handle Miami. I think they will upset Auburn and then continue that upset onto Wisconsin. And I could even see them beating Kansas. And in this bracket, I do have USC going all the way to the Final Four. Now let's look into the East. The East, it's a hard one to predict, in my opinion, with Baylor being a little inconsistent coming down the run. We've seen Purdue have really high stretches and low stretches, and there's a lot of hot teams like North Carolina, Virginia Tech coming into this bracket. So what are you thinking, Bronwyn?
I personally think Kentucky will go on a really strong run until they eventually have to face off against Purdue, where I think Purdue will take over them. And I do have Baylor and Purdue facing off, which I think will also be a very close game, seeing they have both been very inconsistent recently, especially in the tournament. However, I do have Purdue moving on over Baylor.
My thing is I don't really trust Baylor this year with the injuries they got down the stretch and how they've looked a little bit towards the end of the season. I actually have North Carolina upsetting them in the second round, and then I have UCLA and Kentucky meeting in the Elite 8. UCLA is really experienced. Obviously, this is basically the same team that went to the Final Four last year, but I just love this Kentucky team too much, how well they are balanced on both offense and defense, that I have Kentucky making the Final Four.
Now, I know we're talking a lot about these major teams and the upsets in the Elite 8 especially, but can we talk about round 64 with Virginia Tech versus Texas? I personally have the 11 seed beating Texas overall in the 6 seed, because even though Texas is ranked higher, they just have been so inconsistent recently, and Virginia Tech has really been stepping up recently.
Yeah, the biggest thing with March Madness is getting hot at the right time, and Virginia Tech is that team. Going into the ACC tournament, no one even thought they would get out of maybe the first round of that game. They ended up upsetting Notre Dame, upset UNC, and then they went on to upset Duke, and now have claimed their spot in the tournament. So I think it's going to be a great game either way. Now, finally, let's look at our Final Fours. My personal Final Fours, I have Tech versus Kentucky and Villanova versus USC, and I have Tech versus Villanova in the championship, with Tech winning it all. They always say defense wins championships, and Tech has the best defense in NCAA.
I have Tech facing off against Purdue and Arizona facing off Kansas, which I know is usually typical higher seeds, but as we talked about earlier, 89% of the time it is a 1 through 3 seed, and that's what all 4 of the teams are. I do have Arizona facing off against Purdue in the championship, having Arizona take it all because they've just been, I know it's a basic pick, but they've just been such a strong team all season, even coming into the tournament. As you said earlier, they were hot when they needed to be, and they've just been taking care of business.
Now, I know we've already said it earlier, but there's less than 24 hours left to fill your bracket, but you still have time to join one of our brackets made by our fellow school members for a school-wide tournament.
If you would like to join, you can find more information as well as the password to the bracket in your email from our principal, Mr. Toth. For Hilltop News, I'm Bronwyn Liber.
And I'm Connor Fuxa.